Goldberg has returned to WWE multiple times over the last 5 years, keeping him relevant, with new fans seeing the legend of WCW. Still, there are crazy backstage stories about Goldberg fans may not be familiar with. This is Wrestling Up, and here are the wildest things said about Goldberg. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official, and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Dolph Ziggler was interviewed by Zinnia Did That, talking about various aspects of his character and career. Goldberg faced Undertaker, nearly gave the dead man a fatal injury in the match in Saudi Arabia. Goldberg needed a feud to recover from that debacle, and WWE decided to put him in there with one of the safest workers, Dolph Ziggler. Ziggler said the only time he thought about dying in the ring was when he was in there with Goldberg. A lot of times you don't, but maybe if you're in there with Goldberg, you think about it a lot more. The two only had the one match where Ziggler landed 2 super kicks, but following a spear and jackhammer, he lost. He would keep challenging Goldberg to come back and would be punished for it, suffering a lot more attacks before he was finally laid out. Given Goldberg is not known for being a safe wrestler, his concerns are understandable. Goldberg has put the fear of God into the lives of more than one wrestler. Rene Dupree talked about wrestling Goldberg and how dangerous it was. He revealed that during a taping of a segment with Goldberg, the veteran was so stiff that he ended up with a dislocated collarbone. Yeah, he dislocated my collarbone. We had a pre-tape in the back with Goldberg and he hit me with the French flag and we had to do 5 takes. To this day, if I try to flex it, it still hurts. Yeah, he's the shit. He's horrible. Many wrestlers will tell you that. Dupree went on to talk about the fact that Goldberg was signed by WWE even at this age, and said the company must have been desperate to work with the Hall of Famer, and said the reason he was brought back was because WWE was not good at making new stars. Scott Hall would play a huge hand in bringing about the end of Goldberg's undefeated run against Kevin Nash. During the match, he would tase Goldberg, following which Nash was able to take him out and win the title. Hall was familiar with Goldberg and got along with him well during the beginning of his WCW run. However, Hall felt that with time passing, Goldberg became a mark for himself and was someone who did not like to lose matches. Hall said that over time, Goldberg started to believe he could never lose. When Mr. McMahon found out that Goldberg thought about himself in this manner, he made sure to bring Goldberg back to earth during his first run in WWE. Vince did not book him as strongly as Goldberg wanted. The discontent was such that Goldberg decided to quit and would not have anything to do with WWE for the next 12 years. When he finally returned, it was to face Brock Lesnar, and since then he has once again become a fixture in WWE. There are a lot of negative stories about Goldberg. The former WCW champion appears to have had a talent for leaving a bad impression on people, either because of his in-ring style or because of the attitude. However, it should be noted that outside the ring, Goldberg was very pleasant in person most of the time. Christian and Goldberg were once at a live event for WWE. The next town they had to go to was quite a distance and Christian was tired. Goldberg offered Christian a solution and invited him to come aboard his private plane. Goldberg might have gotten the most out of the hype surrounding him, but he was never stingy when it came to sharing these spoils with his colleagues. Eric Bischoff may have lost the Monday Night Wars, but he is someone worthy of respect. As the only one to have challenged Vince McMahon to a war in wrestling and having won for 83 weeks in a row, he made McMahon put his money where his mouth was. It was a very hot period of wrestling, and one of the best creations he made during this time was that of Goldberg. Goldberg was not someone with a lot of experience in wrestling, but Bischoff presented him in such a manner that fans could not help but support him. He said he felt the character would have failed had it come around a few years before that red hot period of wrestling. Bischoff went on to say that these days, Goldberg Goldberg does not have that same passion. Goldberg is doing it for the money. Come on. This is not love our business or love to get out there and perform. In my opinion, sorry Bill, you and I aren't close friends, but we are friends. And if what I'm saying, Bill, offends you, then I apologize because I don't mean it to. But come on, dude, do you think he's doing it for the fun, or do you think he's doing it for the money? It's smart. It's not a bad thing. I'm not putting it down. If I had the ability of Bill's age and looked the way Bill did and someone gave me a 7-figure check to work 5 minutes, come on. Let's be honest with ourselves and not bust anybody's balls over this. Anyone would do it. We dream about that opportunity. One thing that has turned everyone against Goldberg was the booking that placed him in a position that was very unsuitable for him. Bray Wyatt was the hottest thing in wrestling after he debuted The Fiend. He won the Universal title after a controversial feud with Seth Rollins that took some steam off of him. Then WWE put him in a match against Goldberg. Goldberg reportedly refused to lose to Wyatt, and given WWE had no objection with that plan, he won the title. The Fiend character was nowhere near the same after. Eventually following a few feuds, none of which really went that well, The Fiend last appeared the night after WrestleMania 37, before Bray was released. Bret Hart is not fond of Goldberg. The WWE legend's career was ended when he was in WCW facing Goldberg. Goldberg hit him with a stiff thrust kick that gave Hart a bad concussion that forced him to retire early. When Hart was on Broken Skull sessions, he held nothing back, saying this about Goldberg: "I always knew what I was doing. I would hurt myself before I even hurt another wrestler. And I just wish some of the wrestlers I worked with, especially at the end, like Goldberg. He was one of the most unprofessional wrestlers to ever work in the business. For Bill Goldberg to be in the Hall of Fame, he hurt everybody that he worked with. Goldberg, to me, he was one of the most unprofessional wrestlers to ever work in the business. For Bill Goldberg to be in the Hall of Fame, he hurt everybody that he worked with. You might as well wrestle a real gorilla. He was the most dangerous guy to work with." Given Hart's opinion of Goldberg, there's no wonder that Ziggler thinks of death when entering a ring with him. In one of the better known stories about Goldberg backstage, Raven shared Goldberg found himself in trouble when he put a wrong foot with Chris Jericho. The legend revealed the two had been getting on each other's nerves, and when it came to blows, it was Jericho that came out on top. Jericho also talked about the incident. He shared they were having an argument backstage. Goldberg then turned it physical, grabbing Jericho by the throat. He wrote about it saying that when Goldberg made this move, he knew he had to do something and swatted his hand. He then gave Goldberg a two-handed push. Goldberg charged him, trying to take him down. Jericho moved out of the way. He then grabbed Goldberg in a front face lock. I still had the idea that he was going to morph into a savage animal, throw me off, and draw and quarter me, but he never did it. It seemed that the Goldschlager was all smoke and mirrors. We scuffed back into the dressing room and were finally broken up by Arn Anderson, Terry Taylor, Hurricane Christian, and Booker T. Nash Mantis continued to sit in his chair in the corner of the room watching the festivities. Jericho basically said Goldberg was someone who could run his mouth, but when it came to backing it up, he often fell short. The two men would be unfriendly with each other for a long time, with them recently putting their differences aside. When WWE contract negotiations started, reports emerged that Goldberg was wanting the biggest deal on the roster with the fewest dates. Goldberg thought given his WCW run, he was a star. Many of the wrestlers had issues with Goldberg immediately, and many were upset the newcomer felt he deserved a contract better than veterans in the company. Goldberg did not really care what everyone else thought of him, as he felt he was above every other. Linda McMahon was far more involved in WWE back in the day. Now more involved with politics, Linda has taken a back seat from working in WWE. WWE immediately regretted giving Goldberg a huge contract in 2003. The feuds against Jericho and Triple H were not up to the mark, and the fact that he was not that great in the ring meant he was a poor fit. He did not manage to work in the best way with the two top heels. Linda did not hold back in criticizing Goldberg. During a conference call in 2003, she mentioned that she was disappointed by Goldberg's run. This was something that upset Goldberg and was one of the reasons he ended up leaving. Some things Goldberg does on a regular basis have made fans think he is not all there. Goldberg appeared on the January 23, 2017 episode of Raw bleeding from his forehead. He was bleeding profusely by the time he made it to the ring, and then the promo he delivered was atrocious. It seemed obvious he was not all there. It turned out he had given himself a concussion. Before making his way to the ring as a part of his ring entrance, he headbutts the door. It was a pre-game ritual for him and he always did it. WWE was also unhappy with it, and Goldberg has since apparently retired the headbutt. The Undertaker does not often criticize people online, but during the Last Ride documentary, he opened up on his match against Goldberg. He said the match that took place in Saudi Arabia was nearly catastrophic. Goldberg would later apologize for knocking himself out when he ran into the ring post that night. Michelle McCool commented on it, saying it was a train wreck. It was not anything he wanted. It was not anything I'm sure Goldberg wanted or the fans wanted. However, it was Taker's disappointment surrounding the match that was sad to see. It's just like, wow, that was really close to being catastrophic. The match was supposed to be a long-awaited dream match between the two, but thanks to the botch was almost fatal. After the concussion, Goldberg dropped Taker on his head from the jackhammer and could not even get up in the piledriver position. Undertaker had to bring the match to a sad end with a chokeslam. And these were the wildest things said about Goldberg. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.